In the past few years, a lot of great Metroidvanias have been released. These are games that take inspiration from Metroid and Castlevania, with countless items that help you explore a vast, interconnected world. But what if we took that and made it a little less vast? Smaller. There, that's perfect. This is Microvania, a game I'm making. Get it? It's like Metroidvania, but smaller. A bite-sized platforming experience, with a twist. Every single one of your abilities needs to be collected in the game, and that includes walking and jumping. And how's that gonna work? Well, I'll tell you how. As soon as I figure it out. But we're gonna have lore, we're gonna have a story, we're gonna have whatever this thing is. I've also been doing a lot of research into what makes a good platformer, so I'll share what I've learned along the way. Let's start. Wait, next program? Isn't he already working on a game called Keeper? Why, yes I am, and I'm still working on it, and I thought a side project would be a really good learning experience. Everything I learned from making Microvania will help me finish Keeper faster and better, so don't even worry. Now let's back up a bit. Well, let's back up a lot, all the way to the beginning. To start, I found some free sprites to take inspiration from, and I was ready to go. This is our hero, a little wizard dude who bumped his head and can't remember how to walk or jump. But he needs something to walk and jump on, so I threw together this grassy tile set for the game's environment. And here he is in his new home. To jump, we can just give him some upward velocity whenever the jump button gets pressed. Well, it's a little more complicated than that, but you get the idea. The horizontal movement needs some work though. That's better, he's not rolling around anymore. To fix it, I used a little trick I like to call get keyboard input and then do stuff with it. Just one problem, he's still walking backwards. But that's not really a problem, we can just flip the sprite if his horizontal velocity is negative, otherwise known as left. Wait, I lied, there's actually another problem. The game looks like garbage. Why is it so blue? Luckily, I have exactly what we need. I just so happened to make this pixel art landscape a few months ago, so we can go ahead and throw that in there for now. It actually fits surprisingly well. This was originally going to be a forest area, so maybe I'll redraw the background later. Maybe not, who knows. But let's keep working on the visual stuff. We need some juice, and we can get that through animation. Through careful scale manipulation, we can make a little squash and stretch for this little dude. That's more like it. It adds a little more life when he jumps, and it makes it seem more impactful. Beautiful. Let's add in an annoying jump sound that I'll probably have to replace later. Right now, the game makes sure you're grounded before you can jump, to prevent you from just kind of flying around. But if we want to add a wall jump, we can also check if you're touching a wall. I'm not positive if this will make it into the final game, but it's kind of fun to play around with. I also experimented with a horizontal dash. This kind of thing needs a lot of effects to look decent, so we'll come back to this later. And now it's time for some polish, and those platformer tips I mentioned earlier. Platformers like Celeste use something called coyote time, where you can still jump for a short time after you've left a platform. This little thing makes a huge difference in how a game feels, and it makes the controls feel more fair to the player. And it's easy enough to implement. When the player tries to jump in the air, I can just check if they were touching the ground in the past few frames. Another thing you probably haven't noticed in games is jump buffering. Basically, we can remember how long ago the jump button was pressed, and we can forgive the player for pressing the button a little too early since we know they were trying to jump. And it seems to be working perfectly. When they hit the ground, we can just check if jump was pressed in the past few frames. There are so many more things like this we can add. Basically, if there's a way to give the player a slight advantage with a mechanic, we should do it. Let's do some more polishing while we're at it. I drew some more decorations, like these trees and bushes. I drew some spikes to watch out for, and I started to work on having the camera follow the player around. I ended up using an asset called Cinemachine to help with the camera movement. Anyways, you know how when you're walking outside, perspective makes closer things look like they're moving faster? This is called parallax, and I can make a similar effect in Microvania. First, I'll separate each part of the background into its own layer. Now if I offset each layer by some multiple of the camera's position, it looks like the background has depth. Again, it's a little more complicated than that, but you get the idea. It's subtle, but it adds a lot more life to the game. It's one of those things where you barely notice it when it's there, but the game will feel really plain without it. Oh, I also got the clouds to move on their own. Shifting gears a bit, I made a little platform and I brought it into the game. Unity actually has a built-in platformer collider, so it wasn't too difficult to make it so that it's solid on the top, but you can pass through jumping from the bottom. I want to be able to drop through them, so I just disable the player's collider for a second if you press the down button while you're standing on one. I ended up finding a bug where if you build up enough speed, you can clip through the ground before your collider reactivates. But that's a problem for future Mickey. Now about those spikes. For now, if you touch them, we can take the player and just put him back to the start. But actually we can do better. Taking inspiration from one of my earlier games, we can make a death animation that's more, stylized. I think it's cute. Let's add some more hazards. I drew up a little slime, and now you can jump on him. He doesn't do much right now, but we can fix that. With a bit more code, we can turn him into a ruthless killing machine. Are you terrified yet? But we can fight back now. Just give him a little stomp and we're good. But you know what I always say, if your slime doesn't split into smaller slimes when you hit it, what's even the point? So here's what we have now. I think this looks a little weird, but you have to admit it's kind of satisfying, so let's just enjoy it for now. This was easy to do, by the way. Right before the slime spins away, I just instantiate a smaller one. Did you know Unity added 2D lights a while back? To use them, you just press a few buttons, change some settings, and... where'd everything go? 2D lights? More like 2D darks? I'm sorry. Okay, they're working now. Look at all that ambiance. I'll have to think about how I actually want to use these though. If I make an underground area, I think these would be perfect. I can also change the color. Spooky. That'll be useful if I ever decide to make this a horror game, I guess. Actually, that gives me a good idea. What if we had a disembodied eyeball that just kind of looks around and stares at you if you come near? Or what if it rotates around, but if it sees you, it focuses on you and attacks you? The challenge becomes avoiding them, sort of like a stealth mission. I think that'd be cool. Anyways, I've added in a lot more things that I didn't have time to talk about in this video, like collectible items and a lot more enemies. I'll put all that in the next video, so subscribe and like if you haven't already, you know, for the algorithm. There are links to my Discord and Twitter in the description if you want to get more frequent updates on my progress. As a bonus, you get to see me bullying my fans. I think that's everything. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.